All right. Just barely made it. All right. What is going on, everybody? All right. How are we all doing? We all doing okay? Oh my god. Sorry, I just woke up a tiny bit ago. Let's see. Amber Yasser, thanks a lot. Luffy has the perfect fruit for both himself and One Piece's length. What? But what One Piece fighting styles that could theoretically work for a long series while staying interesting? Tier list idea? I think there's a lot of abilities. But what One Piece fighting styles that could theoretically work for... Okay, I see what you're saying. It's tricky because... So Luffy's fruit, it is perfect. It is perfect for that because... ideas like gears and things like that, that's good ways that you can give Luffy a lot of upgrades over time before getting to... Because most devil fruits, they kind of just have, like, the standard form and then awakening, right? Luffy's, thanks to the potential of the rubber fruit, thanks to the potential of the rubber fruit, there's literally, like, so many extra iterations that Oda was able to come up with, because not just the two gears 2, 3, and 4, but also all of the variations of Gear 4, right? Snake Man, Tank Man, Bound Man, he was able to come up with a lot, right? Because the fruit is very, flexible, right? So, that being said, more scrambling to avoid that late point. Genuinely, yeah. Well, to be fair. No, yeah. It's really to avoid that late point, because I did grab an espresso. I was taking a nap. I'll be honest. I was taking a nap. But I had time for this. So, let's see. If I were to save, I don't want to do a full-ass tier list for that. That's an interesting idea, though. That's a fun idea. I'm going to put that down as a tier list idea. That's a fun one. Also, important shout-outs. I'm going to say this right now. So, Pirate King Podcast, this is your last opportunity, I believe, to get in submissions for the Pirate King Podcast. So, I should have announced that better last week, but Pirate King Podcast submissions are open. Get your submissions in right now. If you don't know what the Pirate King Podcast is, that is my monthly podcast that I do for my top tier of members or patrons. Both apply. And everybody gets to submit a question, and you can ask. That's where you can ask questions that are a bit more in-depth. Doesn't have to be One Piece, other series, TV, movies, video games, NBA, whatever, real life. That's where you can ask me pretty much anything. Obviously, there are boundaries, but pretty much anything. And then I answer it in far greater depth than I do in streams because I have more time. And the podcasts usually cap out at around an hour and a half. So you can join Pirate King Podcast. You can get your submissions in now, and then you get access to all of the previous Pirate King podcasts. I think we're at like 20 or something at this point. So check that out. And then the other big thing I want to draw people's attention to. Recently we did a giveaway. We did a giveaway for the island posters, people who we actually selected the winner on stream. But if you participated in the giveaway and you didn't win, check your email right now because we gave you all a consolation prize. So if you participated in the giveaway, if you went to One Dream Studio and gave us some feedback, which puts you into the giveaway, go check your email right now. We gave everybody who participated a consolation prize, so make sure to check that out. I think if we think about all the devil fruits, right? So here, let me put that in a tier list idea. List for best fruit for Luffy. If not, go. Yeah, I think a fun fruit for Luffy to have would be. I think a Zoan would be. No, is a Zoan too limited? Here's the thing, because Luffy's fighting style is creative, but it's not abstract. Does that make sense? So, for example, I don't think you can give Luffy an abstract ability such as Law's ability. One Piece in general doesn't have too many abstract abilities. Fun fact, I've recently been watching some Naruto stuff again for fun. I don't know why, just struck me. I was mind blown. I kind of forgot how Naruto's power system is I mean, like, I have things that I don't love about it, but the powers in Naruto are so beautifully diverse and varied, and the ideas that Kishimoto was able to come up with for abilities are really, really, really cool. I used to feel like Bleach has the most interesting abilities out of the big three, but I think going back through some of Naruto's stuff, I think I underestimated. I think I forgot. I might have to rethink that because it's just like, like he'll come up with a character Pain and be like, and Pain's abilities are like 6 characters' abilities, and each one of these characters individually, all of their abilities are pretty fucking complex abilities. Like, this is like 6 unique characters, right? And you just go through like all of the Sharingan abilities that they have, all of the Rinnegan abilities. There's so many options that they come up with. I guess the problem with Naruto's abilities are that I think they get too many abilities that are too broken all thrown in, and I think that my observation basically became like, I think past a certain point, Kishimoto had some characters just have such an embarrassment of riches in terms of abilities that it was kind of like, wait, why doesn't this character, you have like so many powers, why are you only using like Susanoo or something like that? Or why are you only using this or that? Like, that's the one thing I think that fights, like he had characters who had so many things. Like Madara was like stuffed up the stuffed up the wazoo or whatever with like 50 different eye abilities and Hashirama cells and all those things, and it's like, wait, why now in this fight are you only using this or this? That was the only thing that I've got as like my critique of Naruto abilities, which is like sometimes it felt like he gave characters too many things, and then it's like it's almost pointless. Like, why is it that after Obito got the Jinchuriki abilities, became like the Jubi's host, why is it after that he just stopped using Kamui forever? Because Kamui's really good. It would be, if he used Kamui with that shit, he'd be broken. Or I forget, did he lose Kamui for that period of time? I forget. Didn't Sasuke barely use the 6 paths? Yeah, like, what happened to the truth-seeking balls and stuff? I don't know. Proto Carl says, I count Hunter x Hunter as honorary big 3, and that has a better power system. I think Hunter x Hunter is where you get to like the really abstract ability ideas, right? So that's like its own thing. The one thing I'd say with Hunter x Hunter is that I think it does have like a good, like Hunter x Hunter's power system does lend itself to the most extensive sort of strategic fights, because its fights tend to be based a lot on rules, for example. I think Naruto's system hits a nice sweet spot where like you can have a lot of fights that have like strategy, but without sort of like as elaborate of a setup. Does that make sense? Like, like Shikamaru versus Tenten. Was it Tenten? Yeah, whoever he fights. Is it Tamari? Whoever he fights, the fangirl. His future wife. Right? Like, that doesn't need the most complex ability set, but the fight itself has really good strategy. I do think Hunter x Hunter has fights that have good strategy, but I do think Hunter x Hunter fans overrate how much that actually... I think, like, Naruto has, like, a greater quantity of strategic fights than Hunter x Hunter overall. Naruto's obviously a much longer series. I think Hunter x Hunter has a few fights that are like... I think Hunter x Hunter has very few fights that are true gems that illustrate just like the beauty of the complexity of the Nen fighting system when it comes down to it. I think it has a few fights that really, really showcase that well, right? Like, let's say that... I don't want to spoil things. But I think Naruto has a greater quantity of like nice, fun, strategic fights too, if that makes sense, Madara is literally a cheat code. He's like a cheat code that forgets how many cheat code tactics that he has, which makes him less of a cheat code. Amr Yasser says, I meant less for Luffy, but like a theoretical alternate universe with another One Piece character as the MC. Like, in my opinion, both Beige and Law got fun fruits. Lost Fruit is a really good fruit for variety, but I always feel like with anime main characters, you need like, Luffy's fruit is like the perfect example, right? Even if you change Luffy's personality or whatever, the ability itself is really good because you want it to be able to you don't want to have like too abstract of an ability, because for the main character, not you don't want to every single time they fight to have to be like working your brain, you know? Like I'm saying from the author's end. So like Law's Fruit, there's only so many ways to keep that really how to explain this? Law's Fruit is really, really cool, right? But look at, for example, Law's fight with Virgo. Law can just cut Virgo in half, right? For a long-running series, that could easily kind of become an issue where it's like, okay, Law can either cut this character in half with his fruit or he can't. And then each time you give Law a new opponent, either like you have to come up with new reasons or new ways to make it an interesting battle, right? Like there's more thinking that goes into having to design a shit ton of fights for Law. I really like the fact that Law's first fight was against Smoker. To date, I think Law's best fight in the story is the Smoker fight, because it's the fight that best showcases kind of the variety that you see with both his his ability up against like a tricky Logia ability. I think against Doflamingo you saw some nice little variety, but a lot of it was like just some clashing and stuff like that. It was still good. Like both his bouts against Doflamingo I think were cool fights. Okay, I'm not trying to say that. But I still think in terms of just pure display of all of the cool little tricks that Law can do, I think Smoker was a really cool way to showcase that. But that's the thing. Like, with Luffy, like, when your main character is a brawler, like a Luffy, like a Gon, like an Asta, like a Yuji, it's just so much easier to just throw them into random fight. Like, Luffy can fight a new person every single week in East Blue, and as long like he doesn't have Oda doesn't have to think too much in terms of like how to make this like really really out like it's just either Luffy's punching him or trying to figure out a way to kick and punch him, basically. Does that make sense? Protocol says, I like just the power system more. There are better fights and more of that in Naruto. Yeah. I think Naruto has some like phenomenal fights. But yeah, the Hunter x Hunter power system feels really, really nicely thought out. And the cool thing about Hunter x Hunter is like it's one of those where I feel like you could imagine yourself in the Hunter x Hunter world, and it's fun to try and think like, okay, based on like what would my Nen ability kind of be, right? Like which one of those 6 types would I fall under? I feel like everyone wants to think that they're a specialist or whatever. And then maybe what would I try and construct for myself? I like that in Hunter x Hunter there's also some level of leeway that like you can concoct your Nen ability yourself. Like Kurapika he had a intentionality behind what he wanted to create, and so that led to his chains and everything. Amory Yasser, thanks a lot. Fair point on Hunter x Hunter fights, but Pika and Uvo, and his so like the second one you referenced that I don't want to spoil, that one is to me the epitome of displaying like what a Hunter x Hunter fight can be, like a Nen fight. The Kurapika Uvo fight is an example of how like Nen has a lot of rules, but Kurapika Uvo is a relatively simple fight actually. I think like it's not the most like, to me that's just an example of like Nen has a lot of rules, but when it comes down to it, a lot of the fights you only need like a fraction of those rules to really explain what's going on in the fight. You know what I'm saying? Like I can think of a lot of Naruto fights that have a lot more strategy than Kurapika versus Uvo. And you guys know I don't like Naruto that much, right? Naruto is my least favorite of the big 3. It just doesn't rank really highly for me. And for me, a lot of the reason I dislike Naruto is also just personal bias, because so I'm happy to admit that it's personal bias. It's same as Law. Like I can admit that Law's a really good character, but I'm biased against him. Or Law's a good character, not a really good character. Law's a good character, but I'm biased against him. But Naruto, it's the same thing, which is like when I was young, Naruto ruled in the West. Naruto was the most popular. Like when I was young, growing up, because I know some of my audience is Gen Z, here's the way that it was. Okay, let me paint you guys a picture. Anime was lame. Okay? Done. Anime was lame. All right? Things that were popularly accepted were like Pokemon. Everybody loved Pokemon. Dragon Ball Z. But people, like, those were so popular and ingrained in Western culture that they almost didn't even count as anime. Like, I don't think people were even registered like Pokemon as being an anime. I think people didn't really necessarily count Dragon Ball Z as an anime because it was just like that cool like action show that we all grew up with, right? But things that clearly struck people as anime were like Naruto, like once you took a step down and was like, okay, what does anime mean to the average person in America growing up? It was something like Naruto, right? So Naruto was the most known anime. One Piece, people didn't even fucking know One Piece in America. Like, yes, people did. Like, people are going to come through and be like, no, people knew One Piece and stuff like that. It was very, very, very faint. Like, very faint. Like, you would have to push hard for like the average normal person. If I said I like One Piece, for them to know what the fuck I'm talking about. And like, if they did, it'd be something like, oh wait, that show that kind of aired when we were kids, or something like on fucking Toonami or not Toonami, Cartoon Network or some shit. Tom says anime was lame when I was young too, and you're 21. Okay, so maybe it's still just lame. I guess anime is, maybe it's still just lame. I don't know what the culture is in schools or anything like that right now. I'm just saying from my experience, right? Anime was both lame and generally less known. Like, people could recognize Naruto and knew what Naruto was and everything. That's why kids would go to school sometimes wearing like Akatsuki paraphernalia and shit, right? But One Piece didn't even scratch that level of like, it was so lame people didn't even know it was a thing. Does that make sense? Like, at least Naruto could be made fun of. But One Piece just didn't even like, at least it's nice to be known, you know what I mean? One Piece, people didn't even know what the fuck it was. So, like, on occasion, in school, if I would discover that, like, there's some people that actually like anime or something, because I didn't wear that on my chest or anything like that. I did later on. Once I was in, like junior year, senior year, then I was actually very proudly, like, because then I didn't give a fuck, and then you're just more, like, put together and mature or whatever. So I'd be like, yeah, I like this shit. It, like, fuck you, like, you know, that's fine. But younger, when I was younger, it was kind of like, I'd be kind of curious if, like, I'd, like, do other people like anime? Like, is this a thing? Like, I would never want to, like, bring that up ever, right, myself. And so if I did hear that somebody liked anime, I'd be, like, kind of curious. And it would inevitably be Naruto. And I'd be like, okay, Naruto, that's cool, but, like, do you like One Piece or whatever? And then they would shit on One Piece. And this would happen frequently. Like, it'd be like, One Piece, that's not as good as Naruto. The amount of times, like, you know how much it sucks to be, like, into a certain niche, right? Like a very niche interest. And then the only other people that you can share that niche interest with, they dislike your specific niche interest within that niche interest. Does that make sense? That kind of sucks. It's like, okay, finally, somebody that I could talk anime with, they don't even like the one anime that I want to talk about because they say Naruto is better. That always bothered me about Naruto. Is like, Naruto people are such elitists. And this was during the period of time I didn't even follow Naruto, I think, for a while. So, like, I didn't even know what was going on in that series. It's just like, whatever's going on in that series, it can't be better than One Piece. There's no way. Eric coming through with... I think... Eric, you know what's fucking crazy, man? Eric came through and says, complex power systems are never great in my opinion. Eric, I don't think I've ever... I think you might be the most hardcore... You might be the most hardcore One Piece fan I've ever seen, in the sense that I think that... Not in the sense that, like... How do I explain this? I think I've never, ever heard you express an opinion that isn't, like... like, One Piece above all else. Does that make sense? And then also in the context of One Piece, it's the same thing. Like, I don't think I've ever heard you express an opinion that, like, is not, like, Shanks above all else. Does that make sense? Like, everything has to tie back to, like, oh, well, but how does Shanks play into this, right? I think I've never heard you praise something that, like, that would inadvertently suggest that One Piece isn't the best thing ever. Does that make sense? BFJ97, thanks for the 5. Might be putting you on the spot, but what's your take on this anime tourist drama? If not liking lollies is for tourists, then I'm proud to be one. What? What is... I need a whole bunch of context for this. What? I don't know. What does that mean? What does that mean? Anyway, let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. 26, I remember people trading anime like illegal drugs. Like, let me clarify. So I did have some close friends when I was growing up who were into anime. The editor of this channel, for example, he was my friend since high school, and he liked anime. He was a bit more Naruto than One Piece, I think, but he still liked One Piece. So it wasn't like a clashing sort of thing. But we didn't talk anime that much for some reason. I think he was the one who showed me a lot of Gintama, and so I got to see Gintama. We didn't talk that because you know what it was? Because I wanted to talk One Piece in like a real deep, hardcore, nerdy way. Does that make sense? Like in depth, like the way I made a career out of it. Like I really wanted to talk like. Regardless of what it is, like the characters, the arcs, like is this better than this? Like all of the details, the power scaling. Like I wanted to get into long debate. I didn't have anybody like that, you know. And my next door neighbors were half French, half Japanese, and they were into anime as well, but pretty low key. And for some reason, we never talked about that much either. I think because I was slower on the anime train than they were, and I don't know. I think we just didn't end up talking about anime that much because we had other interests in common that used to dominate our conversations. And again, like I wanted people that I could talk like super in-depth, nerdy anime with. Now I do have what do you call? Now I do have that in real life, so that is a thing. So that's good. But yeah, growing up, that wasn't a thing. The Krigaron says Naruto had a stronger beginning. Zabuza's arc, yeah, not just Zabuza's arc. All of part 1 of Naruto is like 10 out of 10. It's like maybe the strongest extent. Like how long is part 1? Before the time skip, because it seems like all of that is just such masterful storytelling that all concludes like It really feels to me that I like because Kishimoto's often talked about how he's not the biggest planner or anything, but clearly once he started planning a little bit, you could tell that all of part 1, all of the storylines, everything that he set up, built to that final climax between Naruto and Sasuke at the waterfall between the two statues, and it was perfect. It felt like I genuinely feel like all of that part of Naruto is pretty much flawless. Like it's just exceptional arc after arc of like every single arc is better than the previous arc almost. I guess not after the Chunin exams, but the following arcs are still really, really fucking good. Yeah, like it's just a absolutely phenomenal start, right? Like One Piece in its early arcs is obviously, we are all obviously really gonna like it because of nostalgia and everything like that. I'd say the one really strong storyline is Arlong Park. But I think overall as a whole, I don't think One Piece is a slow burn because it really takes a long time setting everything up, and then you slowly see the vision, and then the powerful storytelling keeps building and building. But the one thing that One Piece, I'll always say is that to its benefit is that it never tries to rush itself, right? So like One Piece was fine in its first 200 or so chapters with not treating every single arc like it needs to be this like major plot significant storyline, right? So it's like we get to meander through East Blue, right? And then we get to Arlong Park, which is significant. But then after that, we're meeting Laboon and this whale. And then later on, we go to this island where we meet some giants and stuff. And then, we go to see the snowy place where we meet this talking reindeer. Like, One Piece allows itself to meander and build a sort of atmosphere and dynamic and slow building of the plot. And Naruto, it's just like the Zabuza arc, phenomenal, right? And then its story really kicks off with the Chunin exams, right? That brings so much of the characters together, the conflict together, themes of the series together, etc. And then that segues right into the next arc, which is, they're going after Orochimaru and everything like that, and now Naruto's getting stronger, and then that brings things full circle to the real main backbone of Naruto's drama so far, which is this budding rivalry between Naruto and Sasuke and the divergent paths that they're sort of heading towards, and then that all comes together at the end of part 1, right? Like, Naruto's part 1 is just like a masterpiece in terms of I think it's the strongest start to a shonen series that I can think of. Um, Chainsaw Man Part 1, I think, is insane. Chainsaw Man Part 1 is like, I don't even know how to put that. I don't even know what category to put that in because it's like, it's just really, really, like, that's like its own thing. It's so hard to compare it to other shonen arcs because it feels so different, right? It doesn't feel like it's trying to do any of the same things. It's very visionary, unique in its own way, right? So let's set Chainsaw Man Part 1 aside. If I'm looking aside from that in terms of traditional shonen storytelling, themes of friendship, rivalries, growing stronger, bonds, stuff like that, like feel-good emotions, all of that, but also like sad backstories, yada yada. I think Naruto Part 1's the strongest start ever. And then I think it just falls apart. Chinuela Bachi says Naruto's really badly plotted. The series seemed like it was to do missions every arc, then drop that entirely after Zabuza. I don't think that just because it seems like that initially doesn't mean that suddenly just because it takes a break to focus on the Chunin exams doesn't mean that it drops that entirely. And they do missions later, but I do agree that Naruto overall is really, really badly plotted. But I don't think you can say that about Part 1 stuff. I don't think there's anything about Part 1. Like, to me, it's weird to think that, okay, they did the Zabuza mission, and now they're doing the Chunin exams, and it's like, well, this is bad. Like, the Chunin exams is a bad plot because they're supposed to be doing a mission right now, you know? Eric says, thanks for the 5, man. I really don't like hard match in anything. One Piece fights are mid. Wano sucks. Oh, nice! Okay, Dragon Ball still hasn't been surpassed in paneling, etc. Dragon Ball still hasn't... I mean, I guess you could say choreography, but Chainsaw Man's paneling is the best paneling in manga. One Piece fights are mid. All right, Eric. I'll give you some props for this. It's very rare that I've heard you say anything negative about One Piece. Although you do claim, I shit on One Piece all the time, you just not in the chord. I doubt it. Then I'll raise you one up. What about Shanks? Man? What about Shanks? Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. Your thoughts on Demon Slayer and Chainsaw Man films? I really liked the last Demon Slayer movie. I mean, I have mixed feelings on it. I really, really liked it. It's just, I'm trying to put my finger on, like, why. It really feels like I'm. You know, one thing I'm trying to figure out is, like, if it was an anime episode formats, would I have enjoyed it more? I loved watching it in the big screen because the action is just so phenomenal, right? The action's phenomenal. The spectacle is phenomenal. You're getting the fights you want to see. But something just felt very stop and go about the pacing that doesn't feel right for a movie to me. Maybe it's the fact that it might be because movies are generally, when you watch a movie, you generally want like a tighter sort of like narrative flow, right? If I were to compare it to the Mugen Train stuff, like, I feel like the one thing that the Mugen Train arc benefited from is that it was all, it all fits into one arc. The whole movie fits into one arc, and it does have a tighter sort of narrative flow with, like, the setup, then they're on the train, and things are being established, character stuff is, like, the conflict's being established, etc. Then they're all slipping into the dreams, etc. Then they're all exiting the dreams, defeating the bad guy, but then the bigger bad guy in the final battle happens, and then you get a powerful climax, right? I feel like the Demon Slayer movie, it was really, really cool and really fun to see in theaters. I guess it's just like, it's, without getting into too many spoilers, right? It's trying to do a lot of different fights and action sequences happening at once, but also still trying to do the anime thing where, like, it stops and gives very extensive flashbacks and backstories and things for things like that. So it did just feel like the pace and momentum of the movie felt like it's supposed to be like go, and like mounting momentum and a cascading series of events and everything, but at the same time it would also feel like stop go very often and like a little bit disjointed and a little bit like, now we get a really long backstory here or there. And the tricky thing is that it's kind of like each individual thing is done well. So I'm not sitting here complaining about, like, oh, I didn't like, let's say, Akaza's flashback or Zenitsu's flashback. I like all of those, actually. I think they're all very well done. Maybe the one Tanjiro flashback could have been a little bit shortened. So I don't know what the solution is outside of maybe rearranging some order of events, or maybe making some things move a little bit faster, or maybe this just would do better on an episode-to-episode basis, because it's kind of like, you know, sometimes like the whole is more than the sum of its parts. This movie felt a little bit like the reverse, in that all the individual parts that make up this movie, to me, feel phenomenal. I think the whole product that it comes together to be is a little bit, it's a little bit strangely paced, and a little bit, it lacks a solid flow, I think. But that doesn't mean it's not a great experience. So I don't know how to rate the Demon Slayer movie. I'd say as an arc, if I treat it as like an anime arc that's progressing, I really like this anime arc. That's all I can say. The Chainsaw Man movie, I think, does lend itself very well, like in terms of the length of the arc, in terms of its narrative structure. I think it lends itself very well to a movie format. However, I think it's kind of the reverse situation from Demon Slayer, where Demon Slayer had a bunch of battles and like the actual plot that's taking place is perfect for a movie in terms of stakes, spectacle, etc. The Chainsaw Man movie, I will forever say, I don't think that this should be a movie. I don't think that this is... I don't think this one makes sense as a movie. I think literally, if you wanted to make a Chainsaw Man movie, literally the very next arc after this arc, the International Assassins arc, that's the one that works as a movie. This one, I mean, I'm sure they can go really hard on the animation and the budget and everything like that, but I just think in terms of, like, what is the conflict? Is it that significant of a conflict? Like, big scale, etc., like a crazy important, like, or I guess you could argue the villain's important as a character, but, like, the stakes and everything, is it that big and that crazy? The actual fights and action or abilities and stuff, is it that, like, I don't think the manga has a great fights for this or anything like that. I think the action is solid. I mean, I'm sure they can go balls to the wall with the action, but I just think in terms of, like, when you think movie, you want to think, like, really big, like a really big event that takes place in the manga, being upscaled to a movie, like crazy big climactic battles and things like that, like super high stakes stuff. This arc that's coming up, that's being adapted into a movie, it does raise the stakes somewhat, but, like, it's more so set up for... I've always said that after the Reese arc, which is what the movie is, after the Reese arc, that's when Chainsaw... Like, the Reese arc is kind of like... Up till now, Chainsaw Man's been a relatively normal story. Maybe unremarkable. Then you get to the Reese arc, and it's like... The Reese arc, you're teetering on an edge, where it's like, wait, Chainsaw Man... It's leading to some, like, strange plot developments that you're not really expecting, and, like, some strange mysteries are sort of like, it feels like there's things that are off that you're starting to realize, and bigger things that you're not understanding. And then after the Reese arc, it's like falling off a cliff, and now you're going down the rabbit hole, and now every single arc after this is crazy batshit insane stuff. I don't think the Reese arc should have been a movie, personally. I think the Reese arc is strong for, like, more personal character stuff, and it's got some fights and action at the end, but, like, I think it's more so the character storytelling for Denji, for all of that stuff, etc. Like, I don't think it's built to be a movie the same way that Mugen Train or Infinity Castle, etc. are in terms of their action and spectacle and sense of climax, personally. I just think, like, just think about International Assassins arc as a movie. How fucking mind-blowing would that be to see as a movie? It's just non-stop from start to finish. Really, really good character writing and themes and everything like that, combined with fantastic plot twists, action, spectacles, the level of things continually rising and great finish, you know? All right. Rihanna thanks for the 5. Not gonna lie, I literally had a dream last night about chapter 1162, and in that dream I saw Whitebeard fight Garling, so put me down for that, lol. Oh, we should pull this shit up. I'm sorry, hold on. Let's get into it. Let's try and start getting into it before I talk the day away. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. I'll put you down in a second, Rihanna's are. Ajay, thanks for the 2. Ravens suck. Also, Rox finds family, but Eris dead. Oh, if Eris is dead already? I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think I'd like that. I have a little theory that this Tuesday's video I think is a really cool theory. I think it's a cool theory. I'm very excited to see if this one comes true. So I just wrote it, recorded it. Next week's theory is a really good one. In that theory, there's a miniature theory contained within it. I speculate on something else related to Rox and how God value could play out dramatically. So, but it would kind of bank on it. Well, I guess Eris could be dead for that. It wouldn't really make a difference. Let's see. So Rihanna's said Whitebeard versus Garling. I'll screen share in 1 second. Hold on. I guess I'll just do it now. Let's see. Okay. First, let me see if this is still having that issue where I didn't really change the display. Yeah, it's still sharing the wrong screen. That's okay, though. You know what? That's okay. Here, let me move this shit over. It should be fine. It's all good. I can adapt. All right. Chapter 162 predictions. 1,000. You know what I mean. You know what I meant. Okay, so first Rihanna's said Whitebeard versus Garling. Rihanna's. And then Ajay said Rox finds family, but Eris is dead. Rox finds his family, but Eris is dead. Eric says the Shanks thing is agenda, but also he's the moral compass to the entire story. His relevance is second to Luffy in terms of narrative. Dude, you know what's funny? Okay, Eric, I just gotta say this. So, like, I remember when the chapter came out that revealed that Dragon saved Shanks as a baby. I remember, like, you posted on Twitter something like, I'm making a truce or something with Dragon fans. It was something like that. I'm making a truce or something with Dragon fans. Now that I've understood that, Dragon saved the God King, like, we're on the same side or something like that. No slander for Dragon from me or anything. The Shanks fans befriend the Dragon fans. Something along those lines. I swear you said something along that, about how, like, because Dragon saved Shanks, you're basically going to be like, you're ending this sort of, any sort of slander that you have towards Dragon, right? And that lasted, I think, literally like 1 hour. And then after that, I saw, like, I think somebody said something that you decided went too far. Like, something like, Dragon might be stronger than Shanks. And then I think you just flipped and you were just like, the truce is over. Fuck Dragon. Like, Dragon ain't shit. Dragon ain't shit. Shanks, God King Shanks is number 1 or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like even after he saved the God King, man, you can't give another character credit for more than an hour. Anyway, where we at? Jeff Bezos. Never had somebody like that coming through stream. Good to see that we've got Jeff Bezos himself here. Happy Monday, Mr. Morge. Monday? Stumbled upon your Luffy versus Jack video one day and watched all your videos since. Never logged in and subscribed, though. That's alright, yeah. Fuck. Still thought, man, Luffy versus Jack. That could have been a thing. That's crazy. Crazy different times, man. So you came through to tell me that you watched one of my worst videos ever, then watched all my other videos, but you never logged in and subscribed. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support, man. I still appreciate the views, Appreciate the views. Everything about your comments, starting with Happy Monday, was a little bit confusing to me, I'm not going to lie. Crow Stray God, thanks for the 5. If you walked up and slapped each Straw Hat unprovoked, rank them by how likely they are to retaliate. Ooh. That's a good question. If I slapped each Straw Hat unprovoked. Let's go down the list. Luffy, I think, literally wouldn't care because it doesn't hurt him. He's rubber. I think he would just be like, what? What the heck? Maybe he'd slap me back, but like in a casual way because he thinks it's a joke or something, and that would probably break my like jaw. But Luffy, I think it's not a big deal. I think Zoro would like beat my ass. I think he wouldn't kill me, but he might do that thing where like he slashes you with the back of it. No, I think he might like I don't think he'd try to kill me, but I think he'd actually use a sword. Like not back of the blade shit either. Like I think he'd use a sword. Nami, if I walked up and slapped Nami, then Sanji would beat my ass. If I walked up and slapped Sanji, then Sanji would beat my ass. If I walked up and slapped Robin, then Robin would beat my ass. Or sorry, Sanji would beat my ass. If I slapped Nami or Robin, Sanji would beat my ass. So there would be no time for either of their reactions because it would just happen immediately, right? If I walked up and slapped Usopp, I think that Usopp would be taken aback and like a little bit cowardly at first, but then realize that he can take me and would fuck me up. I think he'd be like, what the fuck? And then be like, oh, you want some of this? And then shoot me with some slingshot bullshit, okay? I think if I slapped Chopper, I think he'd be confused. I don't think Chopper would fight back initially. I think he'd be confused and be like, what the fuck? Like, or like, what did I do? I think I'd have to try and do some serious damage to Chopper for him to start trying to fight back. Frankie would punch me. Brook might laugh, and I think Brook's the hardest one to tell. I think Jinbei would just do some self-defense and like toss me aside or something. I think Brook's really hard to tell. No, Usopp's pretty jacked. And obviously he could he could use his slingshots and everything. Am I missing anybody? No, right? I think that covers all of them. Yeah, I don't think Usopp's ever going to be scared of like the average person if they try to attack him. Where are we at? Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. I was a Narutard back in the Big 3 era, which I regret. One Piece anime wasn't as developed, which turned me off, but no way I consider Bleach better than Naruto. So Bleach is definitely not better than Naruto in the manga. However, like the way I used to view it was like in terms of writing, I thought One Piece is like great writing. When I was young, I liked Bleach a lot too, but then it fell off for me. And then like by the time Bleach wrapped up and Naruto wrapped up, and you could kind of compare the two, like to me Bleach was just abysmal in terms of its writing, and Naruto was clunky, but like it got there. Does that make sense? Like if you got a finish line, right? I feel like Naruto was smooth driving for the first like third of the race or whatever, and then as the second part of the race came along, it was still good, maybe swerving a little bit, and then once it got to the final parts, I think it was clunky, but it still got there in the end. And I still think like there's elements people don't like Kaguya and Obito and stuff, but there's elements that people really love, like Naruto and Sasuke's final battle. There's a lot of moments that people love, like Eight Gates Guy and things like that. So it's complicated. It was clunky. It wasn't clean. But I actually think as far, like considering Naruto's a 700 chapter long story with Kishimoto explicitly not having the ending planned well at the beginning, I think Naruto's actually like, it pulls off what it tries to pull off fine. Bleach, I think post Soul Society, the writing was just so dumb. But it was still kind of fun, you know, like the whole Espada arc. And then Thousand Year Blood War, it wasn't even fun anymore. It was just dumb. It was like the Thousand Year Blood War weekly reading experience was absolute comedy. Like absolute comedy. And this was like the online consensus at the time. It was like, okay, another chapter of like fucking this Pepe love guy or whatever. This is now like 8 chapters in a row of this bullshit villain with this weird ass design doing weird stupid stuff that nobody likes. And it would be like 8 weeks of this, and then after that we transition to some other fight that nobody cares about, where again this like it was slowly becoming like, I think Bleach became synonymous with asshole over the course of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. Like literally, like it became a recurring joke meme among so many people, because like it'd be like villain with super specific ability, and then the main character or the hero has come back from training and trained like one really, really specific ability that only strangely counters the one opponent that they have to go up against right here. And it's just like, okay, whatever. It's like, let me pull a god-killing sword out of my ass, right? So I thought in terms of writing, Bleach was terrible. However, 1,000-Year Blood War is coming out again in the anime. Here's the thing. It's still somewhat dumb because it's Bleach. So even though Kubo's getting to rewrite things, a lot of the dumb Bleach stuff still stays. But a lot of stuff also feels smoothed out. Because the premise of 1,000-Year Blood War is really cool. And everything about, like, the tone, the aggressive sense of, like, the tension, the sense of oppressive... like, I think 1,000-Year Blood War does hit some stuff that is very unique among shonen manga, which is that it actually creates a sense of, like, overwhelming desperation for the heroes as they try and... like, almost too much, you might say, because a complaint towards the end is like the villains were just too strong, so like a lot of BS was needed for them to be defeated, right? But it does create like the atmosphere of it, the abilities that debut, a lot of the hype stuff is hype. It is very interesting the way the plot goes, because it's hard to predict, and even now it's hard to predict because we're getting it rewritten. So I think now, in retrospect, depending on how 1,000-Year Blood War wraps up, like, Wano could have used some of the tension that 1,000-Year Blood War had, because it definitely had that in spades. I think, depending on how 1,000-Year Blood War wraps up, I might feel like it's better written as a conclusion than Naruto's ending. It's a little bit unfair because the anime is doing so much to elevate it. It's kind of like, Demon Slayer manga is the same writing as Demon Slayer in the anime, pretty much, but just by adding in so much extra production value, scene direction, artistry, etc., suddenly you feel like the story is really, really elevated. But then once you go try the manga and then you get the story at its absolute bare bones with shitty art, shitty paneling, all of that stuff, then it's kind of like, oh, this isn't really anything special. So it's hard for me to really evaluate 1,000-Year Blood War in the anime, because it's like, I can tell the writing is tighter and it's smoothed over and gotten rid of some things and explained some things, etc. Even basic changes like Squad Zero and everything like that. But it still feels somewhat dumb at its core, but the dumbness is like painted over with a lot of like beautiful artistry and pacing and atmosphere and visuals and imagery and everything like that makes it feel really substantive, actually. So it's like, maybe the God-slaying sword isn't dumb, maybe it feels like poetic genius or something like that. That's what it's actually got people like myself, like I'm watching and I'm like, I like the God-slaying sword episode now in 1,000-Year Blood War. They didn't even change the writing, so it's actually got my brain all confused. So I'll say that. I'm just like, oh my god, maybe it's not fucking stupid that she pulled a sword that can kill God out of her ass after introducing a villain that's like invincible because he's God 1 episode ago, you know? I'm like, maybe this is really cool. Maybe Kubo's a genius. At the very least, what is it? Is it still Studio Pierrot that's doing it? 1,000-Year Blood War. At the very least, the production crew behind it are a bunch of geniuses. Is it still Pierrot? Where do I see that? Hold on. 1,000-Year Blood War Animation Studio. Yeah, it's still Pierrot. Yeah, the One Piece anime was just rough. Like, One Piece anime wasn't as developed, Elijah Petty says. Put it simply, you cannot watch Naruto action and then go to, like, Luffy versus Arlong, Luffy versus Crocodile, or, like, Luffy versus NL and feel impressed in the slightest. And those are One Piece's most important fights. Like, it wasn't just dated... It's not just dated now going back to see it. It was dated for its time, like in comparison to its direct competitors, right? That was an issue. I think I distinctly remember Eni's Lobby is when the tide slowly began to change in the online anime community towards One Piece as an anime. Eni's Lobby is when it began to change, because that's when One Piece started to introduce some of the more traditional action anime elements that people... Like at that, like during that era, the staple of anime action was like when characters disappear because they're so fast and they leave behind those little like lines, those like fast disappear, like super speed lines or whatever. Like people ate that shit up. Nowadays, I think things have actually shifted away from that to more so like if characters are moving very fast, you actually want to see the speed and action and everything like that. So it's actually kind of come full circle. But back in the day, that was like the anime staple where it's like, oh my god, a character moves really fast when like you can see their like they turn into lines and just disappear for a second and everything. One Piece didn't catch up and have that shit. Like Bleach was doing that fucking by Soul Society or whatever. Naruto was doing that since they're fucking Genin. One Piece caught up to that at any slobby. Like God knows how far in. And that was the first time that it was finally, finally something. Anyway, I loved the One Piece anime before that, right? But it was Eni's lobby when other people fight. Like, One Piece I started to see online stop being made fun of as, like, the kiddie, silly anime by people who hadn't seen it because YouTube videos of Luffy versus... Back then, YouTube videos were very easy to watch, too, of anime, right? So around that time, Luffy versus Lucci, which was, like, finally One Piece's first really long, elaborate, like Goku versus Frieza type fight that it had ever had, right? That fight really did a lot for One Piece's rep online because like the YouTube videos would circulate and like finally One Piece would start showing up in like top 10 anime fights of the year or stuff like that, right? Like One Piece would never show up in anything before that. Continuing on. Rihanna thanks for the 5. Speaking of Chainsaw Man, I think part 2 has been a real letdown. I don't care for the new characters at all, and the new devil designs have been mid. I see that you censored devil. Is devil not allowed to be said on YouTube? Pretty sure you could say it. The new devil designs have been mid. I do think there were some cooler devil designs in part 1. Especially, there's one devil in particular that I think didn't have... Because, like, all of the... primal fear devils you hope have a really good design. I think some of them do, some of them don't in part 2. I'm behind, I think, one chapter on Chainsaw Man, so I don't want to say anything, but the chapter that I left off on left me really excited because I felt like the finale of it had built a really strong atmosphere where I'm very excited to see like what everything that's been set up like explodes into. And I could see the finale of this being... I can't imagine the finale of this being as strong character writing wise as part 1. But I think in terms of plot wise, I think it could be the craziest that... Plot wise and conceptually, maybe it's the craziest that Chainsaw Man ever goes. I do think that part 2 has been very uneven. Because I thought it was very strong early on. Then the middle is where I feel like it was just kind of rushing things and going through the motions and like trying to like switch things up too fast, too frequently or whatever. And then I thought it hit another really good stride with a certain extended battle against a certain primordial fear devil. And then after that again, I thought it was kind of going through the motions for a bit. But now we're getting to the finale of it and I feel like the setup feels very exciting. But... I need to see how it all comes together. I do think part 1 was very consistent. Eric, responding to what I was talking about with the dragon situation, Eric said, thanks for the 5, man. I put out my hand and they spit on my face and it was more than that, bruh. I was willing to make an alliance, but they acted like clowns. Man, Eric, perspective's a funny thing, man. Perspective's a funny thing. That's all I gotta say. Aaron Youngblood, thanks for the 2. Harold arrives to help Rocks. Okay. I forgot we were doing the chapter predictions. Here we go. Harold arrives to help Rocks. Aaron Youngblood. Damn, next chapter already. I would like Rocks to fall into some trouble first before that happens, but I do want to see Harold show up. Harold better show up, let's be honest. Peter Falk says Boruto has made Naruto worse in hindsight. Oh, 100%. I mean, like... Here's the thing. I haven't even read much of Boruto at all. I think I read like 2-3 chapters or something. But because I was catching up on Naruto stuff a little bit and rewatching Naruto stuff. Out of interest, I went to Boruto and just decided to watch some of the Boruto fights, right? Specifically like Naruto and Sasuke fights. I fucking hate them. Because, like, I just don't get it. Why does everyone just fight with as you would say, taijutsu now? Like, why? Like, it's just taijutsu fights. I did think I think some of the fights are very well animated, like against, watch that fight against Momoshiki. I don't care about giving Boruto spoilers. I watched that fight against Momoshiki. I was like, this is very well animated, but, like, why is it all just punching and kicking? I'm like, isn't this Naruto? Like, let's set Naruto aside for a second. Sasuke has, like, you would need an encyclopedia to go through all of the abilities he has. And it's not like they're bum abilities either. They're, like, broken-ass abilities. Like, he's got some really busted shit, right? Like, why do I see none of that in these fights? Like, this would be so cool now to see adult Naruto and adult Sasuke, like, actually display the full range of things that they can do now. And it's just like, it's basically like they're back to the first arc where all they can do is like punch, kick, and some basic ranged attacks. Except now it's just like the scale of it is a lot higher. But that's the frustrating thing to me, because I'm just like, they can do so much. And I guess the logic is that, like, well, the villains are so strong now that that a lot of these advanced abilities won't work. But then I'm just like, okay, but then why is, like, Sasuke fighting with just, like, straight hands and a sword? I don't know. Like, is he even that strong with just straight hands and a sword? It just that doesn't even make sense to me, like, power scaling wise, like how he would be able to fight like a god with just straight hands and a sword. I don't know. Stormy says, I think 90% of characters can absorb jutsu in Boruto. But then, how's that even exciting storytelling? Why doesn't he use the Kirin or something, like his lightning technique from the sky? Like, why would you write that stipulation of characters being able to absorb jutsu as just the norm into a story where the main power system is ninjutsu? What's the point? And again, it still just doesn't make sense to me. Like, okay, if that's the case, then how is Sasuke able to fight these gods with just his sword? Because he doesn't have like the 8 gates or anything like that going for him. Right? Isn't he just, like, I get that he's stronger than the average whatever. Like, it's not like he's just like a dude, but he doesn't have some sort of special enhancements, right? Unless I'm missing something here. I'm not a Naruto expert, so seriously, if somebody wants to fill me in, I would love to be filled in. But my understanding is that he can't, like, why doesn't everyone just, like, what about the gates, right? Like, shouldn't we just throw in a bunch of, like, shouldn't Rock Lee be handling this shit or something like that? I don't know. Virgil Hawkins says taijutsu's pretty cool, though. Taijutsu's pretty, I'm saying taijutsu because that's, like, the Naruto term for it, right? Taijutsu is just punching and kicking. It's just punching and kicking, which is perfectly fine, but, like, I don't go to Naruto for just punching and kicking, right? I don't get it. Like, can someone correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, is Sasuke, like, is he, like, 8 gates guy level with just his sword? And if not, then why is he able to fight, like, all of these gods with just a sword? I don't get it. I don't get it. They apparently went to straight taijutsu because people complained about the big explosions that had overtaken the series. But if you cut out the big explosions, that's fine. But at least keep, like, the cooler abilities, right? Like, what about Amaterasu and shit like that, you know? Punch, kick, weapon. Alright, let me catch up on these. Sorry. So we covered that. Christian Barraza, thanks for the 10. Could Teach have been Damied at God Valley? Being a demon not bound by logic explains his not sleeping and ability to eat multiple devil fruits. Changing his appearance, explaining the weird body. You think he's been permanently Dami reversied? I don't think so, because I think we'd be able to tell visually that he's permanently like that, personally. But that is an interesting idea. Paul, thanks for the 2. Do you think Boruto has redeemed Naruto? I don't know enough about Boruto to say yes or no, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say no. MOH, again, I don't think Naruto is the worst ending in the world. Like, I really don't. I feel like if you're a Naruto fan, you're probably not that upset about the ending, right? Like, it's just not a great ending. But I think as far as a series that's, like, that long, that wasn't really well planned in the first place by Kishimoto's own admission, right? I do think it did fine for its conclusion. Like, I think it did fine. It gave some things that people liked and then some things that people didn't like, and that's basically it. Like, I think if you're considering it as like the end of like trying to culminate the whole story in this really ambitious final plot line, it did fine, in my opinion. It just wasn't good. To me, maybe some Naruto fans think it's really good. I think it was solid. Like, I think it's acceptable. I felt like with Bleach, because I was a Bleach fan growing up, with Bleach's initial ending with Thousand Year Blood War, I could feel no satisfaction, and it just tainted my whole view of Bleach forever. And it made me think of the whole series in a very negative light for a long time, and that applied to a lot of Bleach former fans for a long time. So I don't think Naruto's ending is like a Game of Thrones type ending or Bleach's initial ending, you know? It's not as strong as the story started, but when you're trying to wrap a story that's 700 chapters long with that much plot stuff, it did okay. It just had some missteps, but also some strong points. And I think it did conclude all of the plot stuff that it needed to conclude. That's the thing. That's the other thing to give it some level of props for, that, like, I think it concluded plot-wise all of the things it needed to conclude plot-wise. I think people just didn't like how some of the things were concluded plot-wise, or like some of the messaging or character stuff. But people liked some of the other stuff, you know? Justin! Thanks, Justin Holland. Emu and Kuja show up in God Valley. Dragon gets Devil Fruit. Yeah, let me put those down. All right. Emu and Kuja show up at God Valley. I'll put these as separate. And then Dragon gets a Devil Fruit. Factory Cow, thanks for bringing Yonko to your member for 18 months. Yeah, Boruto is whack. Can't imagine Oda writing in a way to negate the main power system of the series. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, no, that's a good point. Well, here's my counter-argument. Okay? My simple counter-argument to that is, the thing with Haki is that, how do I say this? The core power system of the series, like, for most of One Piece, right? Like, let's be very, very, like, let's break this down, right? It's different because in One Piece, for the vast majority of all of pre-time skip, the majority of fights are just punching, kicking, and swords, okay? Like all of Zoro's fights are just swords, Sanji's fights are just kicks. Most of the opponents they fight, like, maybe they got a Devil Fruit or something, but, like, the Devil Fruit will just be like, I'm Mr. One, I'm a swordsman, but we're still fighting with, like, swords and stuff. Or, like, I'm Kaku, I'm a big giraffe, but we're still fighting with swords and stuff, right? I'm Jabura, I'm a wolf, but we're still fighting physically, right? I'm Absalom, I've got some invisibility fruit, but we're still fighting physically, right? Ryuma, Mr. Two, right? Like, all of those fights are physical fights, and even Luffy, his fighting style is all punching and kicking. He's not learning any advanced, like, special... He doesn't have, like, an abstract fruit. He just has a fruit that lets him punch and kick in different ways, right? One Piece's core fighting style, its core fighting system, has... Oh, Miss Super from MOH? Thanks, I'll get that in a second. One Piece's core fight... Like, if you stack up all the fights of pre-time skip, One Piece's core fighting system has always been physical combat, taijutsu essentially, okay? Now, the tricky thing is, as the story progressed, we began to be introduced to more and more powerful Devil Fruits that could not be beaten with physical combat, right? So One Piece was always predicated on just physical fighting for its protagonists, but as the story progressed, we start meeting new characters like, oh my god, these Logia characters with elemental abilities. Okay, the characters, our heroes literally can't fight them, right? Kuma with the strange paw fruit, right? Then all these crazy characters like the Phoenix fruit, the fucking Guraguru no Mi, like all of these crazy powerful abilities started to be introduced as we got towards the end of pre-time skip. And the idea that kept getting reiterated was like the protagonists with their fighting style cannot compete with those abilities because it's abstract, like elemental abilities against just characters who just punch and kick, right? So introducing Haki as a way to negate devil fruits in a sense and fight back against them, like technically you could say it's negating the main power system of the series, but functionally all it's doing is allowing the series to remain the same in its fighting style, which has always been heroes punching, kicking, or slicing the opponents. It got to a point where now a lot of crazy abilities are taking over the scene, so the heroes can't fight against like Magellan, they can't fight against Kizaru, Akainu, stuff like that, right? So now we're introducing Haki to level the playing field again. Our heroes can go back to punching, kicking, slicing the opponents. So I don't feel like that's a fair argument exactly, because while devil fruits were always a big thing in One Piece, the devil fruits that like our heroes, like our hero had, Luffy had, and the devil fruits that generally we fought against were fruits that like ultimately it came down to like fruits that could be fought or punched against, you know? Like even Luffy's one really notable fight, like look at the Logias that Luffy even fights pre-time skip. Crocodile, despite having a really crazy Logia fruit, Oda boils the fight down to the final round to, well, they just get down to punching and kicking, because that's really what One Piece combat is. NL, crazy Logia ability, but against Luffy it doesn't work, so the fight turns into punching and kicking. Does that make sense? Lucci punching and kicking, Gecko Moria, Luffy versus Shadow Asgard, punching and kicking. One Piece combat, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, devil fruits are a part of the one. Like, you made a good point that Oda did introduce something to negate the main power system of One Piece. But the thing to remember is that the main power system of One Piece doesn't necessarily dictate that, like, that's how our protagonists and what most One Piece fights are about, right? One Piece fights were always from the beginning taijutsu fights, first and foremost. Luffy never had, like, special ability. His only ability was that I can punch and kick in different ways. Zoro slicing, Sanji kicking, right? Haki basically allows them to continue fighting the way they've always fought against characters that have these special abilities. Naruto, it's not the same, because Naruto, yeah, like taijutsu always mattered, but right off the bat, Naruto is about introducing lots of special abilities, right? Special abilities that that could branch out and branch out and branch out and become more and more and more complex, right? By the end of the story, you've got like, I don't even want to get into the list of things for Sasuke, right? Sasuke's got fucking Rinnegan, he can create fucking meteors, he can create like giant orbs of rock, he can teleport others, he can teleport himself, create chakra armor, lightning, million different versions of lightning, hypnosis, fucking undying flames, like so much stuff. Naruto, he can create Rasengans, Rasen Shurikens, summon toads, Biju Damas, like giant chakra balls and stuff like that. He had truth-seeking orbs, like so much shit. Like the abilities become so varied by the end of the story, because that's more so Naruto's thing. It was never about just punching and kicking. It really was about ninjutsu, right? And most characters that we saw fight, it was fights with ninjutsu, with taijutsu being mixed in. That's why Rock Lee is like the exception to the rule, in that like Rock Lee was a guy that just fought with punches and kicks. That's not the norm in Naruto. In One Piece, that's fucking normal. You've got a lot of characters who just fight, like, from beginning of the series, just fight with just punches, just kicks, just swords. Sanji fights with only kicks. You see what I'm saying? Like, I get why people dislike that Haki counters so many Devil Fruit abilities. I think Oda went too far with that. But if you look at what Oda's doing in the grand scheme of things, he's not ruining One Piece's power system. He's just keeping the way fights have been the same as from the beginning of the story. Does that make sense? It's like to keep the story from turning into a combat system that Oda never intended it to be. Does that make sense? Where are we at? MOH said Garling shows off his Conquerors Haki. I'm sorry I missed that, man. Garling shows his Conquerors Haki. This one's going to be controversial because, like, if we get any sort of clash between Garling and somebody else, it'll be like a whole bunch of discussion of, like, was it a Conquerors Haki clash, not a Conquerors Haki clash, etc. Because that's the one thing. Like, I don't think I necessarily critique in my mind Oda too much for saying, like, Haki transcends all and it counteracts devil fruits and stuff, because I think that's more important for it. That is necessary for staying true to both the themes of the story, but also just, like, the actual fighting style that One Piece fights have always been built around, which is, like, physical combat, right? Like, at the end of the day, it also should kind of be the case that just because, like, nobody likes NL, right? Nobody likes the idea that, like, just because a character ate a super powerful devil fruit, now they're way stronger than other characters who are much better fighters, right? So Haki is a way to basically level the playing field and basically be like, just because you ate, like, a fancy fruit, that doesn't mean you're going to beat, like, fucking Shanks or Mihawk or Garp or something like that, you know? Like, it can help, but I don't think we'd ever want to be in a end of story scenario where it's like the strongest character is just whoever ate the strongest fruit. I mean, that might be Emu, for example, but even Emu seems like he has really strong Haki, and part of it is that we want to see Emu defeated because, like, he doesn't symbolize what it should mean to be, like, the strongest just because you ate, like, a super powerful fruit, right? Like, we like seeing characters that have earned their strength, you know? So, yeah, that's just my thought. I think my critique with Haki, because that's what I was getting off with the Conquerors Haki thing, is the lack of clarity around it. That's my bigger critique. So, while I think, like, completely negating devil fruits to a degree, that kind of makes things almost too boring, right? So I think Oda didn't need to go that hard with it. I do like the idea of Haki basically being the great equalizer that keeps the story consistent with, like, you know, you can be just a swordsman and still be, like, absolute top tier in the One Piece world, right? You can just punch and be top tier in the One Piece world, right? So I think that's important to keeping consistency for the story's ideas and the way the fighting style has been. But if you're going to go down that route with Haki, then either don't complicate it, or if you're going to complicate it, be very consistent with what you're doing with it, right? That's the thing. I think Oda either didn't need to make so many different levels to Haki, or if he's going to make all these levels to Haki, then have greater clarity as to what is being used when. You know, I think that's my critique with it. It's not Haki as the concept, it's Haki in the execution. Let's get Streamlines up to 100 real quick, because we're almost there. Factory Cow, thanks for bringing a Yonko to your member for 18 months, man. Yeah, Boruto is whack. Can't imagine Oda. Oh, no, we covered that. That's what brought me on that whole tangent. Also, let me take a moment real quick. If you participated in the giveaway for the Island posters, go check your email right now. We just sent you all, even though you didn't win the giveaway, unless your name is Jules. If you did not win the giveaway, we picked the giveaway winner a couple weeks ago. We sent you a consolation prize in your emails. So if you participated in the giveaway and you were not the winner, go check your emails. We sent everybody a consolation prize who participated. So thank you very much for giving us your feedback. Everybody's got a consolation prize. It goes away, I think, by Saturday, so definitely check it before then. Definitely check your emails if you submitted something for the giveaway. Also, I want to shout out, this is probably the last weekend to get in your submissions for this month's Pirate King podcast. For those of you who don't know, Pirate King podcast is for my top tier of patrons, the Pirate King members. You can submit what you want me to address in the podcast. So any question you have about One Piece, other anime, manga, video games, TV, movies, real life, NBA, whatever, you can ask that in the podcast. I answer every single person's question in depth, in far more depth than I can on stream, because I've got a lot more time on the podcasts. So definitely get your submissions in if you have not already before this weekend, because I'll be recording it very, very soon. Yeah. And the podcasts are always about an hour and a half long, so if you do want to join the Pirate King tier to get your submissions in, or just to listen to previous podcasts where I go into a shit ton of topics, then definitely you can join and you get access to all previous podcasts. All right. Carnage, thanks for the 5, man. Emu Dami reverses Eris and Rox has to kill her in order to save Teach? Oh my god, that's brutal. Emu Dami reverses Eris and Rox has has to kill her to save Teach. Carnage. That would be crazy. That'd be insane. I'm going to give you credit for that, even if you just get the first part right, because that'd be crazy. Eric J.O., thanks for the 5. Eris dies, and we see a parallel death of Ida. Oh, shit. Because Ida's got to die, too. Do you think Ida died during the Dami Reversi incident 14 years ago? Because I think that's very possible. I think it's unlikely we cut away from God Valley, just an idea I had since I don't think Ida is alive currently. I agree, Ida is probably not alive currently. Put that down. We've already got Eris dying a lot here, so I'll say yours is only going to be correct if, because we've already got Eris dead, right? So yours is more specific. So I'm only going to give you credit, Eric Jo, if Ida also dies. Eris and Ida die. One Piece, One Life says Garps versus Rox, and Roger only joins a bit after. That would be crazy. I mean, Garp would probably just turn around and start swinging on Roger, right? Garp versus Rox, and Roger only joins a bit after. Factory Cow, thanks for the 5. I thought I'd make a quick joke, lol. I feel bad that you spent 15 minutes breaking it down, and now I look like a Boruto apologist. I do understand Haki. I wasn't addressing, like, you really in particular. It's just, it got me thinking about why I don't have an issue with Haki as a concept, like, countering devil fruits. I think it's super necessary, actually, in the One Piece world to counter devil fruits like that, and it fits the story a lot better. But you did get me thinking along those lines. I was like, wait, why do I feel so strongly about this, but not that? Meek, thanks to the 2. Hey, I hope Oda's okay. Have you read his backstory? His backstory is very, very long. So I saw that Pew posted like 12 pages of it. So I do really want to read the backstory, but I need to take a little bit of time to sit down and read the whole thing. Because I just saw it on Twitter, and I think I scrolled to the last one. So I think I scrolled to the last one to just see he had some commentary, I think, about current Shonen Jump or something like that. But I do want to read the whole thing. I wonder what insights that'll give us. Eric, you're putting in a prediction, man? Garling holds Blackbeard and Eris hostage. That's a great prediction, man. Thanks. Garling holds Blackbeard and Eris hostage. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. I missed Grizzly Adams and Elijah Petty. Oh my god. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. Did Orochimaru deserve... So Elijah Petty said, did Orochimaru deserve a redemption in Boruto? Did Orochimaru deserve a redemption in Boruto? No. Orochimaru is like one of the worst characters ever. I don't think he deserved to even be on the good guy's side in Naruto itself. Like, in Naruto... Because I don't know what the deal was with his redemption in Boruto. I just heard some things like Orochimaru was at Naruto's wedding or some shit that I didn't even know if that's like... I didn't even know if that was real or like just some jokes that people were making or something. So I can't speak on Boruto. I know that Orochimaru is basically normalized as just another character in Boruto. Like, you know, this wacky other dude that hangs around, right? But in Naruto itself, Orochimaru was kind of... He was treated as like a good guy that was just a part of the alliance by the end of the story. And that was just whack because it was like, this is like one of the most evil dudes in the entire story, right? Like really, really bad. Like, man, Orochimaru used to have such aura. His music, amazing. His theme music, anytime that would pop up, I that was the shit. That was, I think, to date, that's my favorite anime villain's theme music. Yeah, part 1 Orochimaru was a phenomenal villain, and then it's like part 2 Kishimoto basically, I think Orochimaru worked really well as a long-running villain. Like, he was the main villain of part 1 Naruto. I disliked the way that he was dealt with over the course of the story, because it was kind of just like, you've got a really good villain, and he's kind of this recurring main villain figure, but clearly Kishimoto wanted to introduce a lot more bigger deal villains, and when you're going to do that, that's totally fine. Like the Akatsuki and then obviously Madara and all of that stuff, right? Like Kishimoto had bigger plans. That's totally fine. But I think if you're going to do that, you want to resolve the conflict with that other villain that you spent so much time setting up first, right? Like, you know, in One Piece, like, just because there's bigger fish to fry than Crocodile doesn't mean that you don't still want to resolve the Crocodile storyline, right? Like actually see Crocodile be defeated by Luffy and everything like that, and then you move on from there. I'm not saying Naruto had to defeat Orochimaru, but I think that the way that Orochimaru went out with Sasuke and then being sealed again by Itachi, I just didn't like any of that personally, because I just think he's a phenomenal villain. I still feel like Orochimaru he was at his peak. I still feel like Naruto's best villain. Madara was also a phenomenal villain, but then you know what they did with him. And I would argue that Madara at least got a better closure than Orochimaru, even, because Orochimaru, they kind of just fizzled. Like, once part 2 started, it kind of just, like, shit on Orochimaru a lot. It's like, oh, he turns out, like, Itachi fucked him up when he was younger and stuff. Like, when he was, like, 10 years old or some shit. I'm exaggerating. And then ever since, Orochimaru has become this little bitch that, like, seeks the eyes, but Sasuke just kills him while he's lying there in bed, literally, like bedridden Orochimaru. Like Orochimaru goes out bedridden, basically, right? And then he comes back, but only for Itachi to bitch slap him again. And it's like, I feel like there's better ways to hype up the new cast than just shitting on Orochimaru personally. That's me personally. Yeah. I'm not saying he got redeemed. He just got like sanitized or like normalized, right? I don't think Orochimaru got redeemed as far as I know at the end of Naruto, and I don't know what happens in Boruto, but he just got normalized. They sane washed Orochimaru. They're like, it's normal that this dude existed and did everything he did and basically like nearly destroyed the Leaf Village or whatever because whatever, you know? I'm still of the opinion that Sasuke shouldn't have been like given a pass for everything. But I dislike Sasuke quite a bit. Although I've been watching a lot of Sasuke fights because they're the fun fights to watch. So it's complicated. I have fun rooting for him in his battles, but not as a character. Yeah, the Orochimaru stuff, I don't know. It's a shame. I like that villain a lot. I do think Naruto had some strong villains. I think, yeah, you know what? That's the tricky thing to me, that I feel. Because I feel like Naruto had a lot of really strong villains. It just kind of tossed them away one by one without giving them good closure. I didn't like how it ended with, because Orochimaru, I think, phenomenal villain. One of my favorite anime villains, actually, when he was, for part 1 purposes, right? Phenomenal villain. I think Pain was a really good villain for his whole storyline, right? I didn't like the talk no jutsu at the end, but that was like the first time it really happened, so we kind of give that a whatever. Pain was a cool villain because he was badass. Madara, really excellent presence, hype moments, like everything you want from a villain. Vision, command, plan, all of that, great stuff. And Toby, phenomenal villain until he took off the mask and then he just went downhill. And then we're left with fucking Kaguya, and it's like, okay, why do we throw away all of the really great villains for basically a NPC? I don't know. I didn't like Danzo, but I think that's just because I thought Danzo was really lame. And I think also, one of the big things I didn't... Again, I'm not the biggest Naruto person, so like, I skipped lots of sections of part 2 prior to the Pain arc. So my memories like I read them in bits and pieces and watched them in bits and pieces. So a lot of the whole Itachi storyline, I have much less attachment to Itachi as a character than most people because a lot of the Itachi stuff and Itachi storyline I skimmed through. So yeah, don't trust my opinion on that. I just thought Danzo's lame. I thought lame design, lame that he just uses a bunch of Sharingan because it didn't feel like Danzo's like a strong character. It felt like he's just like a character that stole some shit. I don't know. He was an asshole, so I guess that's good. But I think I don't even remember. I think when Danzo was introduced as the Hokage, I think I didn't even remember Danzo existed as a character. So I was just like, why is this character being called the next Hokage? It just made no sense to me. To me, it seemed fucking obvious that Naruto just saved the whole village. Why the fuck wouldn't Naruto be the next Hokage? It made zero sense. It was like, everybody just saw, like, Naruto is the strongest village in Konoha, strongest ninja in Konoha now. Easily checked off. Saved the entire village, right? So he is the protector of the village. Why isn't Naruto the Hokage? I also think Naruto should have been Hokage at the end of the war. I'm just like, why are we doing Kakashi as Hokage? Kakashi didn't even have his fucking Sharingan anymore. He's just a fucking normal Jonin. Anyway. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 10, man. People say One Piece was more strategic back in the day, but Luffy finding a weakness or counter to an opponent was always the key to simply participating in the fight, not straight up win it. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good way to phrase it. I don't really hear the argument that One Piece was more strategic back in the day, because I don't think strategy was ever one of the main parts of One Piece's fights. I think the only characters that you could say strategy really ends up being a part of their battles is Usopp and Nami, just by virtue of, how their fights go. I think Sanji fights would invoke a little bit of strategy here and there. Even Chopper fights. Chopper fights surprisingly pre-time skip. You go back and look, the Gedatsu fight, the Mr. 4 fight, Kumadori fight, they had a little bit of strategy here and there. Luffy's fights, I think you put it in a in a very good way. Like, my God, a Luffy fight will always just turn into punching and kicking. You put it very well, which is just like, if there's any sort of strategy that needs to be involved as a workaround, it's just there's some obstacle that prevents Luffy from being able to punch and kick. Okay, I've used water, now I'm allowed to punch and kick again, I think that's also why I find it funny that people gas up that Luffy's got really good battle IQ. I think that's just because Oda has characters say that Luffy has good battle IQ, but that's not really reflected in the story itself. Like, I don't watch... Like, if Oda had never said that, or had characters tell us that Luffy is smart, then I would just be reading and being like, well, Luffy's not an idiot, I guess, in fights, but I wouldn't be like, oh man, this is fucking, I'm watching Shikamaru right here or some shit. I don't know. My God, my cough is really bad right now. Okay, alright, let me catch up on all these. Factory Cow, thanks for the 5. Can I predict for the whole flashback that Imu doesn't show up in true form at all? I suspect he has no power, only control and manipulation. In true form, so like we could say Gunko, like you're saying he could show up in Gunko, right? We're not going to do full flashback predictions here because then it just goes off the rails, but definitely noted. Like, are you saying he can't show up through Gunko? I think he can show up through Gunko. Kyle Flanagan, I also don't think that Imu's real body will show up here. I think that's why Oda introduced Gunko as a plot point, as a way for Imu to have an avatar, to show up at islands and arcs like Elbaf, God Valiant, and such. Kyle Flanagan, thanks for the 5. Roger may be revealed to be holding back so that Rayleigh could be the one who saves Shaki. He has to let loose fully against Garling or Rocks. Okay. Roger is revealed to be holding back so that Rayleigh can save Shaki. Ajay, thanks for the 2. Dragon puts Shanks in a chest which has the Dragon Devil Fruit. Okay. Dragon puts Shanks in a chest which has Dragon's Devil Fruit. I think that's bordering on too simple of a prediction, because that's something that we kind of almost know is going to happen at some point, but we don't know if it'll happen next chapter, so we can roll with it. REE, thanks for the 5. I'm on episode 20 of Jujutsu Kaisen, complete ass so far. I'm considering dropping. Does it get better? It gets significantly better. I would say episode 20, I think you should still be in season 1. Get to season 2. You might still not ever love Jujutsu Kaisen's writing, but season 2 is an absolute fucking roller coaster if you like, uh, if you like amazing action sequences, and a very, very, I would say, very gripping, unpredictable, and sort of roller coaster plot line, right? Season 2, it has one arc. Season 2 has 2 arcs, okay? The first arc, it's possible if you don't like Jujutsu Kaisen at all so far, you might still not like the first arc, because the first arc is cool for some reasons. I think the first arc is very good. By Jujutsu Kaisen standards, I think it's good. But it is more character focused. But the main bulk of season 2, once you get past the first several episodes, is one of the great anime arcs of recent times, I would say, just in terms of... There's nothing quite... I think I can say the name of the arc, right? Shibuya Incident. Shibuya Incident, getting the binge that shit is so much fun. Like, so much fun. I experienced it first in the manga, and I thought that was amazing as just a binge experience in the manga. Amazing might be an exaggeration, but, like, I really couldn't put it down. Like, it was, like, fight, plot twist, like, unpredictable plot. You never know. Stakes are really good. Very gripping. You don't know where it's going next. Phenomenal atmosphere, tension, all of that stuff. Just a lot of fun. Just good, pure shonen fun. So, and a simple comparison, so like, my friend, I showed him Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1. This was back when he was my roommate in Baltimore. He was one of my roommates in Baltimore, and this was back during COVID times. So, Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1 was coming out weekly at that point in time. I'd read the manga, so I was telling him, like, hey, this thing is coming out in the anime, you should watch this. So he watched Season 1, did not care for it. He thought it was ass. Did not find it gripping in terms of characters, thought everything was generic, yada yada. He said he liked the animation at points, that's it, right? So I was like, okay, that's fine. Wait for Season 2. Season 2, I had to push him a lot, like, try this. He tried Season 2, thought it was phenomenal. Okay, so, like, that is the experience, I think, of a lot of people. If you get to Season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen, I think it is difficult to not... Like, you might not love it. I think, like, I don't love Jujutsu Kaisen. But I think it is genuinely difficult to not at least find Season 2, the way the plot goes, the way the fights go, and the way the animation and production is. I think it's going to be difficult to not at least find it enjoyable. You would be missing out on one of the most fun... just simple anime experiences if you don't watch Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2, in my opinion. I might still be wrong, but it's fun. Amr Yasser, thanks a lot. If you were the MC of a shonen battle manga, what's your fighting style of choice? Assume you're going to survive the story anyway, but you're not going to be OP. That's a really good question. So am I not allowed to be OP? Because, like, I mean, we're on the topic, right? So I'd just be like, I'd pick fucking Gojo's fighting style because it's... Why would you say no? You know? But if it's more like, what do I think... Like, am I not allowed to be... That's a complicated question, right? So... That's a complicated question, man, because, like, I like my leniency is to pick something that's OP. I'd want something that's fast. I'd want something that has... I mean, like... It's just, like... If I'm not allowed to, like, the easy thing, like, I would pick Yuha box power or something like that, right? Like, but I don't know what I don't know what the parameters are, you know? Parameters are complicated, right? Because I can just state what I would like without trying to make it too broken. Speed, I always like. I like speed. I want something, I would love something that allows me to see the future. I would love that. I feel like maybe that doesn't push into the territory of OP too much. I'd love something that lets me see the future. I'd love something fast, and then I don't need like a super powerful. I mean, I would love a super powerful attack, but like if we're trying to make it not super broken, then how am I able to not make it super broken? I don't know. Yeah, I'd want to be able to see the future. I think that'd be like that's one of my favorite little abilities I would pick that's not like busted but is still really really strong. Oh man. Speed, and then I want a good finisher move. I don't know. Something like that. Slow time down as well. I need a cough drop or something. Yeah, that would be amazing if I could slow down time. Oh, I would want the world. Actually, that's the simplest thing. That's my simple answer. But I figured that probably falls in the category of too broken. But that would be my straightforward answer. Like, if I'm allowed to have an ability, I would pick the world 10 out of 10. 10 times out of 10, I would just pick that. Is that fair? Am I allowed to pick that? Name named. Thanks for the 5. Bogoat, the number 1 right-hand man, fights Roger and rocks right hands, Ray and Whitebeard, and has his first lines of dialogue in the manga. I fucking forget that Bogard's never even said anything, but he has such a following. Bogard fights Rayleigh and Whitebeard and gets his first lines of dialogue. I would love Marokat's teleportation. I would love teleportation as a convenience ability. I don't know if I would love it for combat. Because I genuinely think it could get disorienting. Like, no joke, I genuinely am like, would I fucking confuse myself if I was fucking teleporting around a lot? Would I get motion sickness? I don't know. I don't think our eyes are meant to like swap fields of view that fast. I think that would be a bit of a shock to me each time. Stormy says King Crimson is cooler than the world in my opinion. It's cooler because it's like a weird, like a more out there concept, and it has a cooler animation, but I think functionally speaking, I would just prefer the world. King Crimson also has the, are we including the seeing the future ability? Because that really makes it useful, and that is what I want. I want to be able to see the future and then, you know, do time skip stuff or whatever. But I find the world to be more useful functionally, because like King Crimson is more useful if, how do I say this? Like, the world is really cool just for convenience, you know? Like, there's a lot of times in real life. I know we're talking about combat, but I'm saying that the world is, like, almost as good as King Crimson in combat, but then in real world convenience, it's so useful too, right? How many times in real life are you just like, I wish I could stop time? Like, even if I just fucking, let's say I drop this glass of water or something, if I could stop time and just grab it before it spilled or something, or like my espresso, that's very useful. King Crimson has very little real world functionality. I think it's very rare that somebody's like, oh, I want to skip ahead like 10 seconds in time. I think nobody ever thinks that thought. Like if I'm streaming right now, I'm like, I wish I could skip to 10 seconds after this response or something. Like that's not a real thing that people really, especially because it doesn't let you like really interact with the world during that time. I mean, he was able to do some stuff like throw blood, but it's implied that he can't do much else during that time skip period. And the other thing that's interesting is that the world, like King Crimson is very good for one-on-one. The world is better for fighting multiple characters. Because King Crimson, you skip time, and so you're setting yourself up to be generally speaking, you're setting yourself up to like position yourself right behind your opponent after you've skipped time to attack them, right? That's generally what the goal is with King Crimson. But that means that you can't take out like 4 people at once. Whereas like with the world, you stop time. During stop time, you can kill everybody else in the room and then move on, you know? I think King Crimson is very, very good if you're like in a one-on-one fight with somebody who has like... It's just very good for one... I think King Crimson's... It is technically better than the world, but it's also weirdly limited in ways that the world's not, you know? Amr Yasser, if you were to ask me if I had to pick, I know this wasn't your question, but I'm thinking this. If I were to pick the ability of a shonen battle manga hero, and I get to have that ability, it would probably be the world. It would maybe be Giorno's ability, because it just basically means I'm like fucking invincible. But I feel like that only comes into play like when I'm about to, like, harm is about to come to me. And the world is like just really nice and useful for so many little things. There's so many little areas where it's like, oh, I wish I could stop time for a moment, you know? So many little points. Beyond that, I don't want Luffy's power, Ichigo's power, Naruto's power. Shadow clones could be really useful. Shadow clones could be very... I think Shadow clones is actually... Shadow clones is very useful. Sorry, some stuff going on outside. Shadow clones are very useful. Gon's ability is ass. Yuji's ability is ass. Asta's ability is ass. Denji's ability is... Why the fuck would I want to turn into a chainsaw? I'd be between Naruto and Naruto, Jotaro, and Giorno. I think my heart tells me Jotaro. I think my heart tells me the world, Star Platinum, whatever. But if I really had to sit down and think about it, it might be Shadow clones. It would just be... Productivity would be off the charts, you know? Crazy Diamond, you can fix anything. Crazy Diamond, how often do I don't know. It can only fix things from like a little bit ago, from what I recall, right? It's not like... I forget the rules of Crazy Diamond. Okay. Julian Reed, thanks for the 5. Roger versus Garp multi-page fight. Kaido gets one shot by a stray attack, makes him understand what Big Mom told him. He can't fight either of them yet. You know what's interesting is that Kaido keeps talking throughout God Valley about like how much he wants of fruit, right? He's talked about that throughout the whole flashback, actually. It's been a recurring thing, like Kaido's obsession over devil fruit. And then but then in Wano, Kaido tells Luffy that like devil fruits ain't shit. Only Haki can transcend all. So I do wonder if there's something that Kaido experiences, like he sees the power of Haki or something at God Valley and has like a realization that that's what really matters. Okay, let's see. Roger versus Garp, multi-page fight. Kaido gets one shot by Ace. What the fuck? Shot by a stray attack. Marco Saint, thanks a lot, man. Kishimoto lost the whole plot when he decided nothing mattered in the story except Sharingan upgrades and tailed beasts. I don't even think that lost the plot. I think what he did with a lot of character choices to me, because like I honestly still think that like even just a change as small as like don't have Kaguya, like I think you could look at like Naruto's Final War and point out like 3 key plot changes that would leave most people a lot happier with it. And they might still have issues with like, well, I don't like that it turned into just giant tailed beast stuff and like Sharingan upgrades and everything. But I think that wouldn't be like, oh, this ruined the story for me. I think some stuff like, you know, don't do the Kaguya route, just have them fight and defeat Madara. Um, just have them fight and defeat Madara. And then Naruto versus Sasuke can play out as is, right? So don't do Kaguya. Change the writing of Tobi and Obito's thing a little bit to make it less cringe, right? So I think a lot of people didn't like the Obito situation, right? Maybe the Neji situation could have been handled better, or pick like a better sort of character death or a better way or something. Like, I genuinely think with Naruto's Final War, there's just like a few key focal points that people like fixate on that really like, and there are a lot of like smaller things that people didn't like this, the character treatment for this, like dumb stuff, like there is a lot of stuff, but I do feel like overall people would still be okay if like some of the big things just get changed. Factory Cow, thanks for the 5, man. Hey Morge, I recall you hating on Demon Slayer, but I forget why. I watched up to the train arc and enjoyed the animation. Will reading the manga suck? I hated on the Demon Slayer manga, not the anime. I think Demon Slayer's anime has the best anime fights and action, personally. In my opinion. I think Demon Slayer is phenomenal in the anime's production. I still think the Entertainment District's final fight is probably, like that whole final finale of the Entertainment District is probably my favorite anime battle outside of One Piece, I think. Might be misremembering some shit. I think that is my favorite anime battle outside of One Piece. Might be misremembering something. I'd have to think through. But I love that shit. That's phenomenal. There have been a couple times that like I have sat down on like a Sunday and just cleared the evening to just re-binge watch that battle. So will reading the manga suck? The manga is terrible. Like, so much of Demon Slayer is carried by the anime. It's insane. Like, it really elevates the manga to another level because it's hard to explain. Like, I thought all of that would change is like the animation and music's missing and stuff. But the manga is, number one, it's poorly drawn. It is, out of all the shonen that I've read, it is the most, like all the popular shonen I've read, it's the most poorly drawn popular shonen manga that I've ever read, okay? It has very little character, in my opinion, to its art style. I just don't think it's well drawn, okay? I don't think the action is well illustrated either, okay? So that's number one. And number two, it's not just the animation that elevates it. There's so much that comes from like scene direction, atmosphere, artistry. Because like I reread the same scenes done in the manga versus the anime from that same fight that I'm talking about, for example. And just the way that dialogue comes across, like in the manga, a scene that's like very simple or like a little dialogue exchange that's very simple or whatever. In the anime, it can be elevated to just a genuinely very like riveting, tense moment that feels like you're like kind of makes your heart catch and you're like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen? Like the anime does so much for Demon Slayer. I don't think the manga is good. I recommend, like, it's got a phenomenal anime out there. Why not just keep watching it? You know? Tom, thanks for the 2. Where LeBron after he eats the jacket fruit or swap? Are you saying like LeBron wears me? Because if I have to answer the question, I think obviously, because the person who has like the freakish physical body, right? That's the person that is the person that should wear the jacket fruit, right? That's the way that the brothers did it in the story, right? So I would obviously be the jacket, and then LeBron would put me on, and then I'd get to control LeBron's body and everything like that, and do all sorts of stuff. And the news that day would be that LeBron James goes on a GTA spree where he just walks down the street just beating the shit out of random people. Oh, man. Okay, anyway. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 2. King Crimson plus Epitaph equals Serenit Hatsu. Yeah, I don't want to get into too much spoilers, but yeah, I feel like it's kind of crazy that Tagashi has so much clout that he can straight up, genuinely straight up copy an ability, beat for beat, bar for bar, out of like JoJo's, and people still praise him for it. Like, Tagashi, this is awesome. It's like King Crimson, but better explained, right? Don't get me wrong. I love Serodnik's ability. I love that ability. I'm very excited to see it. I think it's an awesome choice by Tagashi to go there and start writing Nen abilities like that. The current arc has some of the most interesting Nen abilities ever in the story. Probably the most interesting Nen abilities. But I do think it's crazy that he just copied that straight up. Because the thing about King Crimson is that there's no mistaking it. This isn't an ability that a normal mind comes up with. Yeah? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like two people would accidentally come up with King Crimson, who are both manga authors, right? Because, like, you know, some abilities, it's like, okay, creating clones. That's like a universal thing that, like, just because one person came up with it here doesn't mean it's weird that, like, somebody else uses the ability, like, comes up with the ability of creating clones over there, right? Or, like, stretching, like, you know, like Mr. Fantastic and Luffy. It's not like you got to be like cheating to copy off of that ability. Or like fire, right? It's not like Ace is a copy of fucking Zuko or vice versa or whatever, right? But King Crimson is a very, very specific ability. So specific to the point that it didn't make sense to most readers when it was first explained, because it was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man, right? Serodnik's ability required like 5 pages of explanation and diagrams and stuff to break down. And it's just like, okay, this is almost the same fucking thing as King Crimson. The only difference is, I don't want to get into spoilers. There is a slight difference, but conceptually, it's the same fucking thought process. So I'm just like, holy shit, everyone's just cool with it because it's Tagashi. Like, this is fucking insane. That is a very, very detailed and specific ability to come up with, and he just copied it bit for bit. Like, it's the same thing. That's not like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's too specific. It's too specific and too unique. No one accidentally just comes up with King Crimson. Kyle Flanagan, thanks for the 5. There's a point where powers become so complex that they aren't interesting anymore. King Crimson and Golden Experience Requiem are so complex that there is no fight. Meh. Yeah, there essentially was no fight, and that was the point. But at the same time, it's kind of like. I did think the sequence where those two abilities interacted was a cool sequence to visually watch. And, like, the world, with how limited the world is, it did lead to an interesting fight between Dio and Jotaro that spanned several episodes, you know? Like, King Crimson, it's kind of like you can beat it or you can't. Golden Experience Requiem, same thing. Rihanna Zara, thanks for the 5. Naruto Shadow Clones transfer training and skills, because King Crimson can also see the future, and that's where the complication comes in. Anyway, Naruto Shadow Clones transfer training and skills back into real Naruto on disappearing. They're easily the most busted power to have in real life. Man, as much as I want the world, I might have to go with the Naruto Shadow Clones then in real life. It's just too useful. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Rihanna Zara, thanks for the 5. Hard agree on the Demon Slayer manga. I have no clue how it got popular enough for an anime in the first place. It is bad. Anime hard carries. I mean, I think UFO Table just saw an opportunity, you know? Because obviously they had the Fate series, and the Fate series was very... Sorry, I think I'm a little under the weather. I'm not sure yet. The Fate series was, you know, successful for UFO Table, but Fate before UFO Table wasn't, like, a super popular thing. Like, it had a solid niche following, right? And even after UFO Table, it wasn't, like, super mainstream as an anime, right? Anime has its own subsection that's Fate fans, right? Demon Slayer, you walk to any anime convention, you see a sea of, like, green and black checkered cloaks, or pink and black checkered dress, or pink and black dresses and things like that, you know? Like, Demon Slayer's absurdly popular, right? So I figure UFO, I don't know the details of how anime industries work or whatever, but I figure, like, if a studio that has a lot of talent like UFO Table, but that has, as far as I know, never had, like, a property that's, like, you know, a super hot selling manga already, I guess they just saw an opportunity with Demon Slayer, which is like, well, no one's adapting this one, so we'll get the rights to that, and then we'll add our artistry to it to turn into something totally different, you know? I genuinely do view the Demon Slayer anime as, like, it's the same story and same plot and same characters and same dialogue, etc. But it's just so elevated. It's just a different artistic experience, I think. I also think people hate on Demon Slayer for very little reason. Wait, why is it not called UFO table? What am I saying wrong? Morge pronounces every anime studio incredibly strangely. Isn't it? Why is it not called UFO table? How do you pronounce it? Marraket's Fate Zero is big and Ultimate Blade Works is peak. Big means different things, right? Like, the average normie person doesn't know what Fate is. Even people who get into anime, very often, like, they've heard of Fate, but they don't know what it is, right? Like, there's tiers to it. I don't want people to get defensive about, like, Fate actually is popular. I know Fate's popular. If you're an anime fan, you probably know what Fate is, but not all anime fans try Fate. Fate, I think, falls into, like, a subsection of anime fans. Stuff like Naruto, Demon Slayer, My Hero, Jujutsu Kaisen, Attack on Titan, One Piece, like, those are things that are much more widespread, right? Pretty much every UFO table. Why? No, that's stupid. It's UFO table, because that's like, if you just saw the text UFO in real life, like, oh, I just saw a UFO in the sky or something, you'd say UFO. You wouldn't say UFO. That doesn't make any sense. I personally think that I pronounce things correctly, and then everybody else runs with some dumbass pronunciation that makes no sense. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 5. Naruto started with ninjutsu and tactics, but shifted to eye hacks. Big fights became dojutsu spam, and Boruto sadly continues the trend with the Byakugan. I don't even know what they do with the Byakugan in Boruto. But that's good to know. I do think, like, I get that big fights became dojutsu spam, but there was still, like, tactics and stuff like that involved. Like, Sasuke versus Itachi is a pretty varied fight, right? Ergert, thanks for the 2. Dragon and Garp talk, and Garp questions Baby Shanks. Oh, that's a good question. Garp doesn't know that Baby Shanks is one day going to turn his own grandson into a pirate. So Garp's already seeing his public enemy number 1 right there. Dragon and Garp talk, and Dragon and Garp questions Baby Shanks. That's from Ergert. Jax, thanks for the 2. Saturn summons Gorosei and Rox gets surrounded. I would love for that to happen. I'm really hoping that we see the Gorosei in action here. It would also help with the power scaling and understand characters in the modern day. Which to me does matter to some degree. Like, I want to understand where did the Gorosei stack, where did the old legends stack, stuff like that. Saturn summons Gorosei and Rox gets surrounded. Jax. I'm going to start moving a little faster because I do have to wrap up stream soon. Daniel Druff, thanks for the 2. Commodore killing, Killer bowling, greater than Genkotsu Meteor, Garp bum. Alright. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. Is Commodore Killer bowling, is that what, like, is that what Full Body used at Baratier? I forget. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. Demon Slayer anime hype caused it to be the first manga to outsell One Piece in a long time, and by a lot too. Yeah, so like Demon Slayer's manga wasn't that wasn't crazy popular initially. It was like a reverse cycle where the anime made it super popular. Eric Gelato, thanks for the 5. Jump would have put out a bid, and they would have tested for it and won the bid to animate it. Jump would have put out a bid, and they would have won. Oh, so UFO table tested for it and won the bid to animate it. Is that how that works? That's interesting. So there's not, or do they? So they don't pay to get the rights or something? It's like a trial by combat. Who can animate a test the best? Is that how it works? It's not just UFO. It's UFO table. Yeah, I know, but I'm just like, we all know table's a word, right? So UFO is its own thing, right? Because otherwise, wouldn't it be? Are you saying that UFO table is just like it's? I don't get the reasoning. Because like table is its own word, right? And UFO is its own word. So why are people saying that UFO table wouldn't be UFO table? Why are people saying it's UFO table? Because a UFO is not a thing. Bob the Joe Bob says also I think it's UFO table rather than UFO table, since it's usually said a UFO table production instead of a An UFO table production instead of a UFO table production. I just think, and this is going to come across very racist, but I also think it's a fair point. I think that there's language barriers, right? So I think probably Japanese studio doesn't know how, because they name themselves clearly UFO table, right? Because UFO is a thing and table's a thing. They name themselves UFO table, but they think it's pronounced UFO table, but in actuality it would be pronounced UFO table. That's all I'm saying. Stormy says UFO table is just one single word. I get it, but it's also not a real word, right? So you would just break down the pronunciation bit by bit, right? Table is like, we understand what tables, we understand what the sound table together is supposed to sound like, right? Right? So that's table. So why does everyone says table? So we all understand that that's table, right? It's not like table or anything like that. We all understand that it's supposed to sound like table, right? So then you then add the first part. That's done, right? That's done. That's how you sound out words, in my opinion. It's a name. Yeah, it's a name, but it's a name that incorporates real words, like table and UFO. It's UFO tebru in Japanese, and it's not UFO, it's UFO. Yeah, I know, but we speak English. So I'm saying in English, this is what it would sound like. It's the same reasoning why we're not saying UFO tebru. We say UFO table. Like, by that logic, then we should be saying UFO tebru like you just wrote out, right? Am I not correct? Because if you want to go by, well, the Japanese pronunciation is this, you guys aren't saying the Japanese pronunciation. You guys are saying something totally different, which is like UFO table. They don't even say UFO table. They say UFO teberu. That's totally different. You guys don't even say it correctly by their logic. I'm saying if we want to say it in English, you sound it out in English, it's UFO table. It just makes sense. It's UFO table as in comfortable. Comfortable. Oh, ufotable. Ufotable? What? No, I don't think that's correct. Because I think it's table and UFO, because those are two real words that you're combining. It's not English, bro. I know, but we also don't pronounce it the Japanese way either. So what's the point of pointing that out? We don't say UFO teberu. We don't say that. We say it in English, which is UFO table. This is dumb. This is dumb. I think everything I'm saying makes a lot of sense here. I think I'm saying, like, that's all I ask. If what I'm saying doesn't make sense, then why are we not saying it the exact Japanese style? Shouldn't we either go with the Americanized version, the way that I'm saying it, or the Japanese version? I feel like the version you guys are coming up with is a made-up version. Ufotable. I don't get it. Paul, thanks for the 5. Danzo was wasted potential. Much of the ninja world's problems trace back to him, Machiavellian, and unable to embody his own philosophy of self-sacrifice. Yeah, I can't speak much on that because I skimmed most of part 2 up till the Pain arc, and then I know Danzo's stuff happened in the 5 Kage stuff, but I didn't pay super attention. I kind of just wanted to read the fights at that point in time. And I thought Danzo, I didn't really understand who this character was. I didn't recall this character ever existing in the story prior to this. I'm sure he came up before, but I didn't remember. So I was just like, why is this lame-ass dude being named the Hokage? I've never heard of him. Where was he, like, if he can fight, isn't Hokage supposed to be strong? I was like, where was he during, like, Orochimaru's invasion or during the Pain situation? I got confused. I was like, why'd they just elect this random guy to be Hokage? Because, like, all the other Hokage were, like, the fucking Hashirama, Tobirama, these legendary ninja, Minato, you know, Tsunade, one of the Sanin, and then I didn't get it. I didn't get why Danzo was, what do you call? Virgil Hawkins is saying, I think Danzo's a pretty well-written character. I'm not arguing whether he's well-written or not. I did not read his bits closely enough to understand the character. I just got that Sasuke wants to kill him and everything. And that he did some bad stuff, but I just thought he's lame because of design. I thought the design was extremely lame. I thought his abilities were lame because I was like, oh, he's not even strong. He just has abilities that he stole. And it just didn't make sense to me because, like, to me, the moment that he was made Hokage, like, I was always excited for Naruto's dream of, like, him becoming Hokage. But as the series progressed, I felt like the title Hokage got diluted further and further. Because you had, like, the 4 original Hokage who are, like, actually legendary ninja. Then they made Tsunade Hokage, which I remember at the time I was like, why are they making... Because they didn't make Tsunade look that strong early in the series. They also implied she's the weakest of the Sannin and stuff. So I was like, this feels weird that Tsunade is the Hokage. I just didn't think of her as Kage level. Later on, she was shown as being Kage level, but I just didn't think Tsunade is that strong. I think most people would agree that she's probably the weakest of the 5 original Kage, but she's not weak, I guess, right? She's not weak as she was shown later, right? But I was still thrown by, like, okay, so Tsunade is Hokage now. Okay, I can still roll with that. And then next was, like, Danzo, and I was like, I've never even fucking heard of this dude. He's not a legendary ninja as far as we know, right? Like, it just felt really weird to me. And this is, again, I'm not a Naruto expert, so I probably missed some stuff. That's kind of the point. We love a good fraud. Yeah, but it's also Naruto's dream to become Hokage, right? So, like, if Hokage was just its own separate thing and Naruto's dream was something different, then I wouldn't mind. But it feels weird to me for that to be the position that, like, I'm following this main character's entire journey to attain this status. And then it's like, well, now this random dude gets it. And then after that, Kakashi's Hokage. And Kakashi, I know when he had his Kamui and everything was very strong, but the Kakashi at the end of the final war was literally just a normal Jonin. Just a normal dude. He lost all of his techniques, right? So, like, I'm sure he's still Jonin level, but he was no longer, like, a super powerful ninja as far as I know. Maybe I'm mistaken on that, but all of his abilities that we'd seen him use throughout the story were Sharingan based. So I was just thrown. It's part of hating Danzo as the reader. Yeah, but I can hate he was behind the Uchiha Massacre. Yeah, I get it, but, like, I can hate Danzo as a character, but that still doesn't change the broader thing, which is, like, ultimately Danzo's, like, a blip in the story, but what it's done is made me now care less or sort of devalue the main character's dream. It's kind of like if, I don't know, like, Caesar Clown became Pirate King before Luffy did. It would feel like, at least even if, like, Buggy became Pirate King, at least Buggy's a character that we like and, like, we could understand circumstances that led him to Pirate King or something. I would still dislike it, but, like, you get what I'm saying? It's like, if Big Mom became Pirate King before Luffy and found the One Piece, and then it's like, okay, first Pirate King was Roger, then it was Big Mom, and then it's Luffy. Like, you know, like, I really value Luffy's dream because Oda really is making it so difficult to attain and so special. I just didn't like the devaluing of it when it's just like, well, now Danzo's Hokage. It's like, well, if Danzo's Hokage, then why do I care now that Naruto becomes Hokage? You know? Maybe that's a mean thing. Yeah, I don't know. That's a mean thing, but, like, I just didn't care. Okay. All right, everybody. We are going to wrap stream here. We went a little bit longer than I expected. But, yeah, some solid-ass predictions. I'm excited to see what happens next. Really pumped for this next chapter. I do hope that Oda's in better health, so hopefully, as far as I know, the next chapter is coming out, but maybe we have some more breaks coming up. As long as he doesn't, like, as long as he paces himself getting it out, you know? He's been on a really good run this year in terms of chapter releases compared to last year. So, like, I do wonder if he's, like, pushing himself pretty hard and, you know, hopefully that doesn't go too far. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And with that, I will talk to you all later.